Firstly, Paul, welcome to Faces of Fintech. In this video series, what we will be doing is interviewing the tastemakers and the innovators behind the UK's most groundbreaking digital solutions. Really, I just can't wait to hear more about your journey and learn more about your mission to help businesses around the world achieve their goals. So just to kick things off, I'd love to hear who you are and why do you do it?
Perfect. Hey, Emma. Thanks for having us. First of all, it's great to be part of this series and helping you get the message out around the various apps and things. So, my name is Paul Surtees, co-founder CEO of Capitalise.com. We are an advisory funding platform that launched in 2016. Effectively, our vision, if you will, is to help businesses understand their credit score, their credit position, understand the risks and opportunities within their balance sheets, and to be able to get better access to finance funding and capital.
Perfect. So just before we do move on further on to Capitalise, I know you've just given us a slight introduction, but before we do move on, would you mind me asking about your journey prior to developing Capitalise? What made you want to form the platform? What gave you the idea and the motivation behind it?
Yeah, sure. So in a former life, I should say, before Capitalise, I was actually an investment banker at Goldman Sachs. I worked on an interest rate trading floor, running various teams there, and I had been involved with a number of startups, invested and mentored a few startups along the way, and I was super enthused about what the startups were doing. All the founders all felt like they were changing the world, that they were doing something important, that that they had real meaning in terms of what they were doing from day to day. And sitting on the trading floor, I actually wanted some of that. So I resigned, I left, I met my co-founder Ollie Maitland, who is very much the technology side of the Capitalise business. So I kind of consider myself the fin, he the tech. That's kind of how we started when it was just two of us. Obviously, with close to 60 employees now, we are just two of 60. Many people creating something different. But the problem that we set about solving was really about supply and demand of credit. And so businesses were saying nobody is lending to us, and lenders were saying businesses don't want to borrow. And so we really set about solving that problem. And there are a whole menagerie of ways in which we could have done that, but effectively, we thought the best way to do that was through the accountant channel, where actually individuals could help the business because they know them, they've got the relationship, they've known them for years, they've got the data because they have their cloud accounting, and they also have the trust because they've been working with them and they've been, helping the business to know their numbers for such a long time that it's a natural step for them to help them get capital.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I know going back to Goldman Sachs, was there anything there in particular that stood out to you when you were working there, which made you think, oh, wow, there is definitely like a huge gap in the market for this sort of funding platform? Like, was there a story in particular that you remember when you were there?
I think one of the key, I come back to the supply and demand. And ultimately at the time, there was lots of press, whether it was in the FT or the whatever paper it was, that banks were just crying out that they couldn't actually get money out to businesses, and yet those same small businesses were shouting that they couldn't actually get access to the lending. And fast forwarding to today, we've never had more lending in the SME space, and yet businesses are going to their banks asking for further loans and further lending, and they can't get it, and so they have to go back to the market, and that is where the challenge will continue. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, obviously at Raffingers, I can speak for myself and so many others that we are huge fans of the Capitalise platform. I mean, just during the whole pandemic and with everything that's gone on, I know it's helped our clients a lot. So have you noticed like a very big increase within businesses wanting to gain funding during this pandemic?
I mean, actually, if I go back right to the beginning of the pandemic, it was there was a sort of a 2 or 3, 4 day hiatus where we'd obviously all been sent home, and everybody was like, what does this mean? And then day 5, day 6, literally the demand just, it was like a tsunami of demand, and all for the wrong reasons. I mean, nothing had been planned. It was a black swan event of epic proportions. Businesses had very much not planned for this. To your point about supporting the community through this period and refugees, we spent a whole period of time where actually we were introducing CBILS to Barclays, NatWest, and other tier one banks. CBILS at that point was not designed for the introducer market. We did it for free. We became the largest introducers for Barclays and NatWest. But principally, we did it because it was the right thing to do. We wanted to help the accountants help their clients. We wanted SMEs to get access to capital. And, ultimately, we hope that karma looks after us in the long run.
Definitely. No, for sure. I mean, yeah, we're very thankful that Capitalise were around when everything happened, because I know a lot of our clients are now out of the scary stages of the initial pandemic. So thank you firstly to Capitalise. For our viewers who are watching at the moment, would you mind just giving some further information to us how Capitalise differs from other funding platforms out there?
Yeah, sure. I think, the single biggest difference that we have is the way in which we work with the accounting community. So there are other platforms out there that could be thought of as like Go Compare. Ultimately, you put your information in, you meet some lenders, you send it off, and then, all of the lenders will ultimately come back to you. You have multiple lenders asking for information. For us, by working with the accountant so closely, ultimately, we are working hand in glove with somebody that you trust, as a business. So that actually, that has such a huge impact on the success rate. So if you were to go to the market on your own through the internet versus going via an accountant, you're 4 times more likely to be successful working with your accountant than you are by going direct, simply because there's somebody there who has a relationship with a platform that they've worked with many times that can steward it through to the market. So we have 123 lenders on the platform, 93 of which I think have been active in the last 6 months. And as platforms go, those 93 who have been active, not the 123, is more than most lenders have on their platform, full stop. So we've got, a great choice of lenders.
Oh, perfect. And how easy is it for our viewers who are watching to sign up? If they did want to go ahead with the funding, they're in need of a little bit of extra cash flow for whatever reason, how easy would it be for them to come to you guys and say, I would love to gain some funding for my business?
I mean, it's super easy, but I'd absolutely advocate that they come to you guys first and just have the conversation and you work with us. I mean, ultimately, if you come to us, please tell us that you're a Raffinger's client so that we can, we can loop in the accountant involved. But ultimately, it's really simple. There's a series of questions that need to be answered. There's some data information that we need. It might be management accounts, it might be a list of debtors, it might be merchant terminals, but all of these things are exactly the sort of documents that you'll be working with your accountant with, which is why doing it together, they're 4 times more likely to be successful.
Great, perfect. So just moving on, so your successes, is there anything that you can remember off the top of your head, your biggest success in your career? Is there anything that stands out for you that is noteworthy and you're very proud of?
I think there's a couple, and I'm going to keep in the Capitalise world. So I think the first is that in August time we basically went through a pretty large milestone where we had arranged over £1 billion worth of capital offers on platform through the accounting channel. So there's lots of ways to access capital. £1 billion is a big number, but the fact that we have done it only through accountants, makes us, I think, synonymous with working with accountants in this space and delivering kind of value add and service. I think, I mentioned the second one. I'm really proud of the fact that we did the right thing. It's one of our values. I'm really proud that we went through the process of introducing to NatWest, Barclays, and so on, all of the CBILS, and we did it for free. And everybody was just really, motivated about helping businesses and helping the community, helping the accountants. And I'm really proud of that. It's, the billion is huge. And we're hoping to get to 5 billion. But I'm really proud of the cultural virtues that enabled us to do that within the business.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. I mean, how many employees started off at Capitalise compared to now? I mean, I know there's been a huge increase of people that are working for Capitalise, but how many is it exactly, do you know?
Well, once upon a time, it was just Ollie and I. We were scribbling down, ideas on a piece of paper. But now we are closer to 60. We are in London as HQ. We've got a fully owned business in Portugal, where most of our engineering sit. We've also opened an office in South Africa as well. So very much, starting to position ourselves as a global proposition.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, the people that obviously work at Capitalise, they've all come from a finance background, haven't they? So I know there's a couple of people that do work at Capitalise that were, I think, previously in the banking background and have now transferred into something more funding wise. Is that correct?
I think we probably started in that world, actually, where we had what we call lateral hires, where we bring in people with knowledge, with experience in the banking, whether it's kind of banking lending strategies like Campari, which I won't go into here, but so that they bring that native knowledge into the business. But increasingly, as we build the business, as we scale the business, we're bringing in just the brightest, most diverse workforce that we can into the business, and we're training them, developing them. And so actually, we're spending a huge amount of kind of energy and resource on just getting the right people into the best seats.
Perfect. So just sticking to Capitalise, what has been the biggest fear so far, or the biggest trouble that you've had within the business? Is there anything that significantly sticks out, and how did you overcome that?
I think, rather predictably, if you'd have asked me this 20 months ago, you might have had a different answer. But, like every business, when the pandemic came, it was a pretty terrifying moment because, we had the best part of 35 people at that time. And as co-founder and CEO, I'm sitting here wondering, praying that I can maintain, the sort of proverbial roof over all of our heads to make sure that I can, maintain everybody's jobs. And, at the time, I didn't want to go through a process of furloughing or redundancies and so on. And actually, we asked the business, what are you willing to be able to contribute in order to, get us through this difficult time? It can be as little or as much as you want. But rather than us trying to make, a difficult decision, let's make it together. And ultimately people came forward with, pay me for 2 days and I'll work 5, cut my salary to 50%, all sorts of combinations basically came in. And we didn't have to run that for very long, because we started to get visibility of what would happen and how we would come out of the crisis and so on. But like everybody, we were firefighting, and we had to, kind of sit down and figure out how we were going to come out the other side of it. We're fortunate in that, there are certainly sectors that have had a far tougher time than us, whether it's travel, retail, so on. Obviously being in an environment where we facilitate lending in a world where there's lots of demand, we've been fortunate to be on the other side of that. But those first few months were obviously terrifying for us as everyone.
Yeah, I'm sure there are so many businesses and owners who are watching right now and can completely agree with what you've just said. But I just have to say that it's so lovely of the people who work at Capitalise to obviously come up with those ideas and put those forward. So yeah, very lucky to have lovely people on board at the team, I'm sure.
We are phenomenally lucky. And any business, everybody talks about people being their greatest asset and so on. And you just need to really invest in that, because it is so true. And, building a culture where people feel part of a mission, is really important.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. I know a lot of businesses have to invest, like you just said, in their people, because without a good culture, I mean, what is there then? You have to have the good culture so that, you know, everything is smooth flowing and it works. So no, that was a lovely piece of
I mean, maybe now's the wrong time because but literally just today, something that I'm proud of is we didn't win, but we just became highly commended in a workflow for diversity and inclusion. And actually, the reason why that is actually, you know, such an important success for us is that we work in a really difficult environment for this, and that we work in finance, which is very male oriented. We work in technology, which is very male oriented, and we have to really, really work hard to basically get the gender equality, to get the racial equality, to get neurodiversity equality, all of that across.
Yeah.
And probably 4 months ago, we were questioning internally, the people were like, are we doing enough? I'm not sure that we are doing enough and we need to do more. We've set up a women's network. We've set up something that we call our inside out branding, where individuals are talking about the things that we do, which is great. We have a progression frameworks in the business, which is designed to ensure equality of pay, so that, you know, there is no mismatch between, you know, males, females, or, you know, or any other backgrounds. And people have started to talk about that, which means that people have started to recognize it. And without us entering, we've just become highly commended for diversity and inclusion. And so it goes back to that cultural piece that you talk about, is if you can take a step back and invest in and do the right thing, then it starts to get paid back in spades, I think.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I mean, congratulations, firstly. And secondly, I'm actually very happy that you did mention that, because I know that is a struggle, I'm sure, for a lot of businesses to make sure that what they are offering and the packages for their employees are, you know, in line with what other businesses are offering. So no, that all sounds so amazing, and I'm sure the people that are watching today will definitely take on the ideas that Capitalise are using on board for their quality and diversity as well. If you had one piece of tech-related advice for the UK startups and the SMEs to get them to the next level, what would it be?
Oh,
hard one.
Question.
Put you on the
that is a
there.
Tough question. I am totally on the spot. I think, I mean, personally, I'm slightly obsessed about productivity, and I'm rather contentiously, you know, I think Ollie and I are almost at odds with a view about something that is very much a tech-centric view. So in Silicon Valley and, you know, throughout the technology businesses, there's a method of communication called asynchronous. So instead of having meetings and lots of face-to-face, and, you know, it's all about creating a culture where we can be asynchronous. So we can put together a document in Google Drive, we can work on it at different times, we can put comments in, we can, you know, have feedback loops, we can collaborate in this kind of wonderful, you know, wonderful way to an end point.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I'm thinking about is, you know, really that is creating this kind of hive mentality where, in order to be successful as a business, and it will only get harder as we get bigger, we all have to constantly contribute into this lattice of communication, which means that we're always being disturbed. I don't know if Emma, you have Slack or, you know, similar instant messenger type frameworks, but, you know, there are individuals here who send 4,000 messages a month. It works out a message every 3 minutes in a workout, in a work day. Okay, so that means every 3 minutes they're sending a message. That doesn't mean, it doesn't measure how many they're receiving. So, you know, they could be disturbed, you know, every minute and a half. And so one of the things that I'm really trying to explore about productivity is, if you want to do deep work, and deep work means that you actually achieve something, how do you step out of being disturbed every minute and a half? And so I'm not sure I've answered your question, but maybe given you a question, but I think it would be to try and solve productivity in the sense of, are you constantly communicating to everybody, in which case you're ruining people's productivity, or are you creating space where people are productive and can do good deep work?
Yeah, So have you found...
Have I answered your question?
No, you have. And my next question was leading off the back of that is, have you yet found a solution for that within Capitalise, or is that something you're still developing and working on to see what is the best option?
Is the short answer. No is the short answer. I think there's simplicity around like switching off notifications and all of that good stuff. But as a leader in the business, I'm sure that there are younger people in the business who, if an email from myself comes in, or a Slack comes in, they're going to prioritize that over other things. And so, what I try to do is to try and observe an environment whereby I'm respectful of that. So if I'm working on a weekend, which sadly happens most weekends, I set up my Slack messages and I schedule them for coming out at various times on a Monday morning, for instance, right? So that they're not interrupting their weekend, so that I'm giving them the space. That I'm not interrupting them in the meetings that they're having, because that distracts them away from being focused on one thing. So I think it's kind of working, into that mechanism is actually being respectful of other people's space.
Okay, great. And just following on from that, so I mean, in regards to look like the whole funding platform as a whole, so what advice would you give to business owners who are watching at the moment and are thinking of taking that added step and saying, right, I definitely need funding for my business for cash flow issues, but are a little bit daunted by the fact that obviously it's borrowing cash and that cash will then have to be paid back? What sort of reassurance would you give to them to push them to take that added extra step?
Well, I think as an FCA authorized business, we would, and I'm being flippant and tripping you up, but we would never try and push anyone. But I think being an investment banker, and people might cuss and hiss at me, the way in which I think about debt is ultimately to create leverage. Debt creates leverage, okay? And leverage works in both directions. And so effectively, if you think about debt, you should be thinking about, and if you're really thinking about it, you should be thinking about what is the return that I'm going to get on that, okay? Yeah. So if you're thinking that you're going to borrow £100,000, to keep the math simple, at 10%, okay, that's £10,000 of interest that you're going to pay every year for 5 years if you keep that going, okay? Can you realistically achieve 20, 30, 40% return on that money, okay, as it goes in which case that is a good decision to be made. If you are doing it £100,000 and it's going to cost you £10,000 per year and you're going to return £5,000, and that is a bad decision. And again, I come back to this idea of working with the accountant or your finance team internally to figure out what are your plans, what are your objectives, where are you trying to get to, so that you can actually do it in an aspirational way, so that you're thinking about the return on investment, because that's what it is, it's investment. The reason I use the word leverage is that, and this is your comment about push, the point about it being levered is that if the return is less than 10%, then it is going to hurt and you shouldn't do it. And that is the juxtaposition. Ultimately, another value that we have in the business is about being future positive. And so we believe that no entrepreneur, no business owner would ever give equity away. They'd never sell a portion of their business away, or they would never take debt in unless they believed that they're going to take their business into a better place, a more positive place. So therefore, taking debt in or equity is about accelerating the future and bringing it forward, because you could bootstrap, you could not do the debt, but it might take you 10 years to achieve what you could in 5 or 2 by taking in that equity investment or that debt. So if you look at it from that perspective, your aspiration about your future goals about exiting the business for profit or handing something on to your children, whichever direction, you want to bring that forward as fast as possible, but only do it if you can calculate that you're going to have a higher return. Yeah.
So other than the funding, there is another solution that Capitalise offer, which is the credit recovery. Would you mind just sharing a little bit more information on that too? Because I know obviously Capitalise are one of the main platforms that I'm aware of that offer this solution. And I know obviously it's helped a lot of our clients as well. So would you mind just going into some further detail on that and how that works and what it does?
Yeah, of course. So we have a number of products actually that we've introduced. So one of the things in terms of like debt recovery, dispute resolution, ultimately is a product whereby if you have an invoice that is that's not being paid, that is long beyond term in terms of being paid, functionally you've got a choice. Either it's a client that's big enough that you're going to say, okay, fine, I'm just going to write this debt off because this client is too important to me. Or you get to a point where you say, enough is enough. It's unfair. I'm David, you're Goliath. I actually have the opportunity to be able to go and recover this. So we provide a service that enables businesses to mediate with the large, it doesn't always have to be a larger client, but let's just say for argument, it's a large client. Or if mediation doesn't work, to actually go to litigation without actually paying anything up front. So it's a no-win, no-fee proposition that ultimately enables a small business to go and chase that invoice and actually to recover it. So it's not about email automation. This is at the point where you probably can't, you've gone past the point of being able to have a sensible conversation about this invoice, and now you actually want to recover it. So that's one key product. I'm not sure if there's another question coming, but we also have a product around credit improvement, and credit improvement is something that has really, really taken off over the last 12 months. Functionally, it is enabling us to, under a non-disclosure agreement, to be able to share data with a credit rating agency to improve the credit rating of the business. And that's important for two reasons. One, if you're a business that relies on supplier credit, if you have 10 suppliers offering you zero credit, and we can get you into a place where those 10 suppliers are offering you £10,000 of credit, we've just got you a £100,000 loan for zero interest. Okay, that's a great working capital shift. For the second one, earlier on, you talked about what might help a business take that lending decision. Ultimately, by improving the credit score, we can get a better rate. We might be able to take a business that was unlendable to lendable because they've now got a better credit score. We might be able to take that same business and actually get them a lower interest rate because of it. We might even be able to get them more money because of it. So credit improvement is also proving to be an incredible product.
Is there one story that sticks with you where you've literally taken a company who were, for example, at the lowest possible score they could have and have increased their score so high that now they're managing to get the loans they need and the improvement they need?
Yeah, I mean, there's one that absolutely sticks out. So one thing, this has got nothing to do with the accountant, but it's got everything to do with the accountant. When your accountant files a set of accounts, okay, it will trigger off every credit rating agency to rescore the credit score of a business. It's got nothing to do with the accountant. It's a function of filing your accounts. One business had its credit score reduced overnight and lost that supplier credit. It actually went down to 13 points, which meant that it had zero supplier credit. And they went through a credit improvement process and they went back to 83 points, which is the second highest credit rating available, and from a grade perspective. And they went from naught to £25,000 worth of supplier credit. And across the number of suppliers that they had, which was high, it meant that they had something like £400,000 worth of credit available. So zero to £400,000 worth of supplier credit.
Wow, that's amazing. And I can only assume that obviously on a daily basis, these are the things that are happening when a business requires that credit improvement. They come through us and then to you guys, and then that is what happens. We take them from, well, you guys take them from 0 to 100, for example, within a matter of days. Is that right?
Well, on average, the businesses that approach us will have a 15 to 40 credit score out of 100. Okay, 15 to 40 means that they're unlendable. So, a lender's going to look at them and say, look, we're unable to lend. On average, the credit score improvement that we can undertake is 35 points. So that's from 15 to 50 or from 40 to 75, which means that those businesses now are in the lending zone, which is crucial. But it also means that we get supplier credit as well. So, it's a double whammy.
So what are the sort of things that you do look at when improving a business's credit score? What are the things that stick out, and what are the things that you do try to improve and work on?
So there are 93 factors that actually contribute to a credit score. One that we can't change, but you can, is to file your accounts within the same month every year. Okay, so if you file it the following month, that's probably fine. But if you file several months on, and you're getting later and later, what the credit rating agency assumes is that there might be something up. It's a change. We don't like change. As humans, we don't like change. Credit ratings don't like change. It could be that the SIC code is incorrect. My business partner's prior business under a SIC code was logged as hardware when actually he was a software business. So something as simple as a SIC code, in terms of the company formation, you might not have been involved at Raffinger's when you did it. Company sets up on, companyformation.com, whatever it is. They set up with a SIC code that sounds about right, but actually it doesn't have good impact on their credit score. So by assessing their SIC code is something like, it's super simple. There's a whole bunch of factors that come into play.
So really, it's little things that make a difference. And I mean, it sounds super quick and super just simple, like you said, to obviously have a look at those factors. And even something that small can just improve a business's credit rating from, what was it, 50 to 100, was it? Sorry. So
15 to 50 or 40 to 75. So on average, we get 35 points. I think look, again, it's free to try, ultimately to get a sense of whether or not we can improve the score. And there's a fee to be paid, only on success. And in the case of, the example that we used, if you go from £0 to £25,000 supplier credit, got 10 suppliers, that's £250,000 worth of credit for no interest to pay. So it can be significant in terms of the returns. One other important thing that might help is also in tendering.
Yeah.
So if you're tendering for business, you're tendering with the NHS, you're tendering with, Taylor Wimpey, you're tendering with, a large corporate, then ultimately they're going to want to know that you are going to be part of a supply chain that isn't going to cause them issues. So having a good credit score can also help with your tendering. There's a story with Jaguar Land Rover several years back. There was this tiny business that, for want of a word, was making like cogs, okay? And those cogs seemed unimportant at the time, and they were producing them, and, they were going through the supply chain and everything was amazing. All of a sudden, that business went insolvent, and it disrupted the entire supply chain of Jaguar Land Rover in terms of the production of all of their vehicles. And so the only solution that Jaguar Land Rover had to not disrupt the whole thing was to buy that business. Now, that's kind of a Goldilocks outcome. Business was in trouble. JLR come in and buy it to save the supply chain. If they'd actually been doing their supply credit checks, more appropriately, they may have seen that small business was actually really important in the supply chain. So from a tendering perspective, having a good credit score also helps.
Perfect. Well, thank you for sharing that story. I was actually unaware that ever happened. So it's very interesting. Good to know. So just staying on the subject of what Capitalise does and the other services it does offer other than funding, is there anything that is going to be released in the near future or anything exciting that's going to come? Because I know that Capitalise have developed on their platform a lot, and there's now the ability to obviously log in, connect it to your accounting software and be able to see your data and your score live. But is there anything else that is being worked on in the pipeline as we speak, or anything exciting?
I think, in August, we announced that Experian had invested into us, one of the credit rating agencies. And so we've been really busy since that time building out more intelligence around the credit scores, around how we might improve credit scores, how we might identify risk. And so we've got a whole bunch of features that are going to be coming in that space, both for the accountant and for the businesses, to be able to better understand the situation that they're in. So I can give you one statistic that, being a stat nerd, excites me. There are 9% of businesses in the UK have the best credit rating. Okay, but if you are a business who invoices other businesses and you actually check the credit risk of those businesses, so you are mindful of your client's credit risk, then you are 6 times more likely to have the best credit score. Okay, so behaviorally, we think there's some really interesting things that we can do. So, i.e., if you're sitting there thinking, okay, I've got 100 customers, 10 customers, what is their risk? Can I offer them credit? How long should I offer credit for? Has it changed? Am I at risk now? If you're thinking about those things, just behaviorally, you're going to be in the top category of credit scores, because you're more likely to be thinking about how to protect your business. Yeah. And so we're really thinking about those components and what we can do in that space. So there's a whole bunch of exciting releases to come, which we look forward to sharing with you.
Is there anything you're allowed to share now? Just like one little sneak peek, or is it all
one little sneak peek? I think it is around the credit scores. It is around credit understanding, and it is about actually your clients being able to understand that. So we released something called the Capsule Report around October time. We've been putting it in beta test and slowly enabling you guys to be able to share that with your clients. And so really it's the first time that there will be a shareable report that you can give to a business in real time, and that is really going to evolve. So the first bit is the Capsule Report. So hopefully you can start sharing some of those with your clients.
No, very exciting. I mean, I'm sure we'll be the first to be advertising it on our socials with our clients. So amazing. Yeah, no, we're really looking forward. But thank you so much, Paul, for today. I mean, they're all the questions that I have for you. So I don't know if there's anything further that you want to add. But that is all from me. And yeah, it's been absolutely wonderful.
Fantastic. Well, look, it's been really nice to be part of the series. I'm really excited to kind of hear how the series gets on, and happy to be part of subsequent catch-ups. And obviously, if there's anything I can do to help you guys at Raffingers or your clients, just let me know.
If you like this episode, go and have a listen to the rest of the series. We are Raffingers, and you can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn at Raffingers. Alternatively, you can visit our website at raffingers.co.uk. I've been your host, Emma Cohen, and this is Faces of Fintech.